Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, 1 year after the Peshawar school attack that killed over 130 children, how has Pakistan changed? The next couple of weeks, you'll be seeing an awful lot of Omar Badai. He will be our digital producer, while Malika Bilal is travelling around the world. So we've put you to work right away. So much about the Peshawar attacks online.
Really a lot.
What do you have?
Been a huge explosion of hashtags in Pakistan in relation to the anniversary of the attack. Perhaps one of the biggest is Never Forget APS Martyrs. Now, naturally, this is happening in Pakistan, so a lot of the hashtags that are trending are also in Urdu. And one of those hashtags is Hame Yad Hai, which means we will remember. One of the people who's tweeting using that hashtag is Hera. The tweet says, I still remember that night. I couldn't sleep because of this incident, and as the anniversary is approaching, I can't sleep once again. Now, for those of you in Peshawar, in Pakistan, and around the world, we want to hear from you. Tweet us. The hashtag is AJStream.
Hi, my name is Fawzia Kasuri, and I'm a member of the Pakistan Justice Movement in Pakistan, and I am in the stream.
Last year's massacre on the Army public school in Peshawar killed over 150 people, most of them children. The country's leaders promised to crack down on violence after the attack, and the past year has seen an intense military offensive against groups such as the Pakistani Taliban, which carried out the Peshawar attack. The operation has received significant public support and has also been credited with a sharp decrease in fatal attacks this year. But some are concerned with the state's methods, including the establishment of military courts to try terror suspects and the resumption of capital punishment after a 6-year moratorium. So, 1 year on from Peshawar, how do Pakistanis feel about their safety? To help us talk about this, we're joined by Mohammed Gibran Nazir, a civil rights activist and lawyer in Karachi, Sajjad Ashraf, a former Pakistani diplomat, Noreen Nazir, a senior lecturer in political science at the University of Peshawar, and Ibrahim Pataudi, a Pakistani army supporter currently based in the United States. Good to have you here, everybody. So, the Independent newspaper, have a look here on my laptop. Headline about you, Gibran, I'm sure you've seen it. Gibran Nazir, the quiet lawyer and activist who's taking on Pakistan's Taliban. Here you can see him in quite a melee. I want to show you him in action. This was about a year ago. You are fuming, Gibran.
ये आवाम खड़ी है अब हम अपनी तमाम मस्जिदें आजाद कराएंगे पूरे पाकिस्तान से कह रहे हैं जहां जहां तो देख रहा है अपनी मसाजिद आजाद करवाओ इन दहशत
What are you saying? What's going on there?
Years after the Peshawar attack, we had just successfully managed to get an FIR registered, which is, for those who do not know, the first investigation report, the first requirement to start criminal proceedings or investigations against a suspect, which in this incident was the cleric of the Red Mosque in Islamabad, who was continuing to justify the acts of the Taliban.
So Gibran, slow down a little bit first. The Red Mosque, tell us about the Red Mosque. Why is that significant?
The Red Mosque is somewhat of a notorious mosque in Islamabad. Even though it's the government's property, it is paid for by the government, it is run by our tax money, but it has been haunted by militants and extremists for the longest time. A military operation was conducted against the representatives on the administration of the mosque in 2007. And lo and behold, after 8 years, the same administration is still heading the mosque and still using it in the capital of Pakistan to spread hate speech, to counter the state narrative, to even question our constitution and publicly announce support for ISIS.
See, Gibran, you got out on the streets immediately after the Peshawar attack, and the Taliban called you and told you what?
Well, I got a call after I was able to get this case registered, because even that was done against a lot of political pressure coming from the other side. But after we were able to get this, I got a call from Ehsanullah Ehsan, who's a spokesperson for one of the factions of the Pakistani Taliban. And he simply threatened me to back off, otherwise I would be inviting bloodshed to myself, to my family, loved ones, and those protesting out in the streets with us. And of course, my response was, if you're going to stand up firm ground, it was not just my response. The Pakistani people, the people of my country gave their response, because protests happened all across the country, vigils happened all across the countries. And I think it was a turning leaf at that time.
So, Gibran, you mentioned, the Red Mosque and rhetoric about extremism. We actually got a video comment from Abrar. Take a listen to what he has to say, and we'll continue the conversation.
How come we feel safer when all banned religious outfits are still out there and operating? They keep issue their opinion against the state, and the state still let them say what they want to say. And tug of war between military and political leadership on saving their loved ones, and kill those who are not required anymore, is making us all feel unsafe and clueless. I think it's high time where we need to get rid of religious extremism and stop nurturing them.
Sajjad, what do you make of this sentiment, basically, that the government is not doing enough?
This is exactly the point. I think what we were talking about earlier was that terrorism is just a reflection of extremism in Pakistan. As the military has done a wonderful job throughout the year by trying to quell this extremism and militancy in the country, as the figures are indicative, there are about 70% drop in our terrorist incidents in the country. And yet, Gibran is very right that the mosques have not been controlled. The mullahs are still preaching hate. The other day in Lahore, there was posters put up in a shop against a minority community in the country. As the police removed the posters, there was demonstrations. The people have been demonstrating. The shops have closed. The fact of the matter is that unless the state takes on the responsibility of governance, Pakistan cannot improve. I mean, army can do up to a point. Army can act and go and shoot out, flush out the militants. But unless the civilian structure participates in quelling the militancy, in quelling the extremism in the country, in trying to cleanse the curriculum in the schools and control the mosque pulpit, I don't think Pakistan can have a very long-lasting effect.
I'll disagree with that. I'll disagree with that with the point of view, because I believe the army is very powerful in Pakistan. Whenever they've wanted, they've even kicked out the elected prime minister of the country. So let's just not talk about kicking out a few clerics who actually otherwise on the terrorist watch out list in Pakistan as well. What the army also needs to realize is that it needs to put forward a clear narrative for the civilian government to follow. We have in the past considered some, and when we say we, by the way, I'm talking about the state policy. I'm not talking about the people of Pakistan. I'm not talking about the masses, the majority. But the state policy has been that some Taliban factions have been considered assets in one time. And so they were by the West as well, when we were all together in the war against the Russian-Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. But since then, that confusion has not left us entirely, because we inculcated that confusion through our education curriculum, which, by the way, was brought in 1979 under the dictatorship of an army general called Zia-ul-Haq, whereby we redefined the ideology of Pakistan, and where we have confused our children. We have systematically taught them bigotry in our education system, taught them bigotry against other religions, and we have actually put forward to them war heroes as ideals rather than people of peace and people belonging to literature.
I would add to it that why don't the state revisit its foreign policy and its policy towards its neighbors? I think our curriculum, our madrasas, it's all interconnected with our foreign policy. Somehow, if we do not let go of this interventionist policies in our neighborhood, if we do not think of Afghanistan as our satellite state, we simply cannot change whatever is happening inside Pakistan. We cannot curb the extremism. We cannot stop these clergies, because they do have a support of state, whether we like to admit it or not. This is what we see in Peshawar. And I live in the city which is in conflict for the last 40 years, since 1979. I'm scared to go to my university. I'm scared to send children to the school. I'm scared for my cousins, for my family members who are going to the schools and colleges. And this war on education, whether it's in the form of extremism or inculcating this jihadi culture, it has started in my province, in Pakhtunkhwa.
Noreen, may I ask you, what are you scared that, Noreen, what are you scared might happen to you on the way to class, on the way to lectures?
Well, it was not something new. This incident is, of course, is very gory, and we can't forget it. As before that, Malala Yousafzai was targeted for standing up for education, and after that, Etizaz Ehsan lost his life because the suicide bomber wanted to enter the school. And then this gory incident, which is in the school is in the heart of the cantonment, completely under the security, and how the security has been breached. That's why we are asking questions. Otherwise, our children are dying for the last 15 years. There are attacks on the school vans, on the children, on the teachers. We are receiving threats for the last 10, 15 years. We were asked that being a female teacher, you're not allowed to teach in the classroom. We received the pamphlets, we received the threats, and this is not something, this was not new for us.
Sure.
So we were under the terror, but we were trying to behave like a resilient people, but we are not resilient anymore. I think we have lost our faith in the security apparatus. I'm really sorry to say that. Even with the, we are not against the army.
Respectfully, ma'am, I'd like to disagree.
These labels of patriotism should not be there. Whoever is talking against the wrong or faulty policies of the state. If we are equally Pakistani, we equally support our
Noreen
army.
is sitting in Peshawar.
Noreen, no anti-army
Noreen, give me a moment. Give me a moment so that other people can debate with you.
Security apparatus.
Noreen, give me a moment so that other people can debate with you. So you're sitting there in Peshawar. Ibrahim says he respectfully disagrees with you, but Noreen is the one trying to get to lectures and she doesn't feel safe. Ibrahim, why are you contradicting her?
Look, I think that everyone brings up good points, that the security situation in Pakistan is not ideal. However, I think that credit must be given where credit is due. I think over the last year and a half, both the army and the civilian government have taken steps to tackle the problem of extremism. Now, this is a two-pronged approach. There is the military side, which is the actual clearing and targeting of militants and decapitation of militant outfits. And then there is the civilian side. And the civilian side encompasses everything from building infrastructure, from denying social space to extremism, from tackling people who spread hate speech, to actually providing a counter-narrative to extremism in Pakistan. And I think that we must consider fairly what the army has done. People talk about military courts coming in and this being unnecessary. I think that the failure of the criminal justice system in Pakistan is to blame for these things. I think the fact that terrorists can't be convicted under our existing laws has led to this need for...
I disagree, because the same Mumtaz Qadri has been awarded a death penalty, a punishment from an ordinary court, and there are anti-terrorist court present.
So,
okay,
Noreen,
military court,
we're speaking in quite a bit of generalities here.
I mean, of the parliament, but the trials should have been made public. If you wanted to have, if the army or the military apparatus wanted to build the morale of the city or the people of the city, they should have made these trials public. And we have the right.
It's not the responsibility.
So we're speaking in many generalities here, but I would like to make things a little bit more specific.
If I may add.
We reached a great point in the show where everybody's speaking at the same time, including me. So let me just give a little pause so we can bring in our online community as well. They would love to join in this conversation. Omar.
Femi, just to make things a little bit more specific about what has changed basically since the attack, there was a resumption of the death penalty. Hundreds of executions carried out, and we have somebody who sent us a video comment, Bina, who has some concerns about this. Let's listen to what she has to say.
On from the attacks, we still have many more questions than answers about the state of security in the country today. The reinstitution of the death penalty for terrorism cases has worried human rights defenders. We've had some controversial cases, with prisoners convicted as minors being executed, and others being hanged for murders that have nothing to do with terrorism. On the other hand, how do you enforce security when there still appears to be no real consequences for terrorist attacks? For the victims' families, there's still much grief and anger.
Sajjad, I want to focus specifically on the death penalty part of this, that it's being used against minors and people who are not basically tied into terrorism. What do you think of that?
Well, death penalty is any state's right to what kind of punishment it prescribes to its citizens, really. I think there are countries, especially in the European Union, who have actually made a big story out of the suspension of death penalties in Pakistan. But the point is, Pakistan is different. Pakistani society is different. There are countries that may live without death penalties, but there's countries like United States, Singapore, Malaysia, the whole of Southeast Asia. continuously enforces death penalties in Pakistan. So it's a question of individual states' rights to what kind of punishment it prescribes to its citizens or non-citizens. For that.
How effective has it been,
if a country
Sajjad?
considers a crime
Sajjad,
so heinous?
You said earlier the army has done a wonderful job in the last year. How effective has the suspension of the corporal punishment been? The fact that people can be executed, has that been effective?
I think I come back to Pakistan 3 or 4 times every year, and I spend about 4 to 5, 6 months in the country. Yes, I feel there's a slight improvement because you find fewer roadblocks in Islamabad and Lahore and the cities that I visit. There is a general air of improvement in the country, no doubt about it. But the fact of the matter is, as Gibran pointed out earlier also, there is a civilian aspect of it. The army cannot go into every street and cannot control the mosque. There is an element of civilian lack of governance which is very much evident there in the country. If you remember, a few months back, before going to the United States, the Chief of Army Staff, after a Corps Commanders meeting, did issue a statement calling upon the civilian government. Let me give you an example. The much hyped National Action Plan against extremism and terrorism, which was passed last year in February, one of the key elements of that plan was the activation of National Counter-Terrorism Authority. In the budget, the finance minister did not give $1 for the authority. The authority runs without a head. It is understaffed. It's not functioning. So one of the key organizations which is under the civilian control to control terrorism and extremism in the country is not functioning even after passage of 1 year.
So the army is better than the civilian part of the government then, Ibrahim?
No,
by any standard.
I would disagree with that.
We've got some no's and we've got some yeses.
I would disagree with that.
I don't think it's a matter of better
I would
or worse.
disagree.
I think that the battle against extremism is going to be won not in the battlefield, but in our classrooms, in the offices of our bureaucrats, in our parliament, and in our police stations. The battle against extremism can't be won simply by stamping out militants in far-out tribal areas.
It's interesting, talking about classrooms, we had a lot of comments from our online community about education. Omar, what do you have?
That's right. There's a campaign about how education is the best revenge, against these violent acts that take place. We have several people who tweeted in. Fatima Ali tweeted this picture of a terrorist basically being hung by a pencil. And we have this picture over here tweeted by Alvina of a tank, but instead of an army inside it, it's school children with a pencil also pointed at a militant. Gibran, how do you respond? What do you think of this campaign? Is it an effective way to actually combat the ideas of extremism?
Well, first of all, I'd like to clear for the international audiences watching in right now that Pakistan is a country of 200 million people. We are the 6th most populous country in the world, and we are diverse in our ways, in our politics, in our cultures, in our languages, and the different things. So when we talk about certain things and certain policies here, we're not homogeneous societies. There is, of course, dissent in the society as well. And I disagree with the fact that, a state has every prerogative to give whatever punishment it so deems fit. We do live in a global village, and there are certain human rights which are being realized around the world and identified around the world, and death penalty is one which does actually violate that in various instances. Now, coming back too quickly to the purpose of education, I agree with Ibrahim here completely that the battle will be won in classrooms. But the whole fact that our state narrative is not just set by our civilian government. Our army apparatus is a very much big part of it. One of Pakistan's state narrative is that we are a reactionary state. We exist as an opposition to India. But that state narrative does not come from the civilian government. That state narrative comes from the army. And that state narrative also adds to certain cross-border violence. Similarly, the state narrative against Afghanistan, the same thing which Noreen was making, that our foreign policy is a very big integral part of education curriculum as well, and how we teach our children how to love and hate people around the world.
Gibran.
And again, these things are part of extremism.
Gibran, have you seen the video?
Gibran, it's not the responsibility of the army
I just want to ask you something about a video
that is very much
Ibrahim, just take a pause for a moment.
The civilian government, and its failure has been highlighted.
Ibrahim can't hear me. Ibrahim, take a pause for a moment. There's a video that I want to show you back here on my laptop. I want to show you how many views it's had in about the last 24 hours. This video was made by the media arm of the Pakistan military. Over 1 million views here. And we're talking about education as maybe being one way to keep Pakistan safe. Have a listen to a little clip that we shared with you, want to share with you. Have a listen to this.
दुश्मन के बच्चों को पढ़ाना है मुझे दुश्मन के बच्चों को पढ़ाना है
See, it's interesting that it was the army that made that video. Is this another way of fighting for the safety, the security of Pakistan, Ibrahim? Do you see it that way?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you right now.
All right, let me just bring in Noreen. Noreen, I'm sure you've seen that video there.
But
This is the army producing this video.
What I feel that morale building is not done through songs. Get real. We live in a real world where we send our children to schools and we want them to be back safe. And we want them there to get education, not to tell them to take revenge. This whole format is all about revenge and all these things, war. It looks like the psychology of conflict is playing too much on us now. We have become psychological patients. And we believe that by releasing songs such where our children are supposed to take revenge in any form, because revenge is never in a positive connotations. It's never used in a positive connotation.
It was a metaphor,
so
though, Noreen. It's education. Education is a weapon.
Why should my children offer sacrifices? Children are not supposed to be offering sacrifices. This is a wrong concept. And moral building or morale building is not done this way. If we really want to contain this terrorism,
Noreen, let me just bring in Ibrahim so he can debate with you. Noreen, allow me to bring in Ibrahim so he can debate with you. Noreen, take a pause. Ibrahim, what did you want to say?
Look, I'd like to bring light to the fact that the Army's media wing, the ISPR, it often goes above and beyond its typical mandate in producing these kinds of videos, in producing these kinds of morale-building things. Now, let's stop to think about why it does that. It does that not because that's what it's supposed to be doing. It does that because no one else is doing it. The civilian government doesn't take ownership of that. The media doesn't take ownership of that. So the army steps in when other people abandon their responsibility.
I completely disagree. I think the media has done. I think the media has been a very integral part of morale building.
Okay, so I've got three guests who are speaking at once. So I'm going to make all the guests just take a pause, all of you, just for a moment, because we were looking at the security of Pakistan a year on from the Peshawar attacks. Could the attacks happen again, Noreen? Anything like that happen again?
Because I live in this city,
yeah.
I'm really sorry. I do not mean that these are not very good Pakistanis or they are not affected by this war or terror. But I live in this city. I am affiliated with education and I am facing every day a war. I am facing every day a terror. I live in a security space, a militarized security space, where I'm not secure. So I don't feel that in this 1 year, the number you think that has dropped. Yesterday there was a blast in Parachinar and they killed 27 innocent people. So let that add to the number as well. So it has crossed 1,000.
Sure.
And Parachinar is a small city from where I am. It is a very small city and it is completely barricaded. Means there are several checkposts.
I want the last voice in this main show to be yours from our guests because you live in Peshawar, so you understand the danger that faces you every day. Noreen, take a breath for a moment. Just take a breath so I can say, Noreen and Ibrahim, Sajad and Gibran, we have to go to the post show, stream.adzero.com. So much more to talk about and debate about. But before we do that, what's happening online?
I'll leave you with this poll that we took of our audience on whether they approve of the government's response. 58% say they do, 42% say they don't.
So we're talking about the safety, the security of Pakistan 1 year on from the Peshawar attacks where over 100 school children were murdered. We'll be back with you on the online show, stream.adzero.com. Hopefully you can join us. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the Stream's online post show. We're talking about Pakistan 1 year after the Peshawar school massacre. I want to start with something that a member of our online community brought up, which is something that we haven't even addressed in this entire conversation. What is it, Omar?
That's right. We have Takhallus over here who tweeted in saying, as to date, not a single person resigned for what happened and no formal report into security lapses was published. Sajjad, I'll throw this to you. Do you feel like this is the kind of incident that happened last year that would have warranted somebody actually losing their job over it?
They should have lost their job. Somebody should have lost his job. But however, you should understand that such suicide bombing, nobody can completely control suicide bombing anywhere in the world. But it is Pakistan's history that whenever we have had serious incidents of this nature, or even bigger nature, nobody has ever been held responsible in our country. Unfortunately, we do not have a sense of accountability, which is the hallmark of any responsible government.
Noreen, I see you nodding there in terms of somebody losing their job.
Yes.
Did anyone lose their job in Peshawar? Did anyone?
Yes, I agree with him that that's what the city, the people of this city would have felt better if there was accountability, if those who were responsible for the security labs were put to trial. And why is that only civilian government is targeted? Why not the other? Because if they claim to be so patriotic, then they should also offer themselves for accountability too. And I believe that there is nothing against army as such. We are against the system that has been evolved over all these years. We are asking that there should be now a shift in the foreign policy. We are now asking that there should be other institutions should also be allowed to grow. Because what we see that the civilian institution has remained dwarfed and weak as compared to the military establishment and military institution. That's why they are even now producing songs on such occasions. This is not their job, of course. So if other institutions would have been allowed, democratic institution, political institution, bureaucratic institution, bureaucracy, judiciary, elected people, if they were allowed to grow, and I understand we are transitional democracies, but that does not mean that we should not allow other institutions to.
Yeah.
And
Can I
what I feel that I completely agree with the
Noreen, allow Sajjad to have a debate with you. Go ahead, Sajjad.
What I'm saying at this point is, I think the civilians in Pakistan have given space to the armed forces. That's as simple as that. You talked of the judiciary. You had one judge, the Chief Justice, who stood against the military ruler, and he changed the country completely. The question is, people don't stand up. We have had long periods of civilian rule. The civilians just keep giving space to the army. It's easy for them. That's about all.
No, but what we feel that the narrative has been evolved this way, that the only savior is the non-elected dictators. And what we see that since 1957, this country is in a chaos. And what we see in 1971,
Gibran wants to add something.
Yes.
I know we're really short on time here. I just want to make a very quick point. See, the world is watching right now. I'm a Pakistani. I live in Karachi, the biggest city of Pakistan. I live under direct Taliban threat, not one, various banned outfits that threaten me. I don't carry any security, and I go out every day. Why? Because soldiers are dying out there on the borders for me. My police officers are dying for me on the streets, and fellow civilians and school children have died before me and continue to die right now and give sacrifice. I think Pakistan is also at a stage where we need to take ownership. Yes, we are going to be discussing who's at fault, whether it's the military or the civilian government. But the way forward is going to be a long and hard road. Pakistan is going to go through the stage of rehabilitation, and rehab is wrong. It's like giving up that bad drug. And extremism perhaps has become that bad drug for us over the past few years since we've been involved in Afghanistan. And going and getting off it would be a long and hard journey. But the actual and correct reforms need to come in place, and that is education reforms. We need to educate our children, the 3-4-year-old, before the extremists prey on their mind. We need to mold those minds for the better, and we need to take ownership of all of us. Yes, I live in Pakistan. Yes, things are bad here. It is the reality, but it is is my country. And even if I have a will right now, even if I'm resilient right now, that's the Pakistani spirit which I've gotten, and that strength I've gotten from the people of Pakistan, the common men and women. And I think the world needs to know that about Pakistan.
So, Gibran, you mentioned rehabilitation, and we actually got a video comment from Elena that basically takes an expansive look at that and says that there's something that is somewhat ignored. Let's listen to it.
A teacher whom I know teaches in APS, and she's a family friend. She was able to come out of APS on the day of the attack, and after that she's not been able to sleep properly and she needs medical help. That's how everybody is affected in one way or the other. PTSD is the commonest thing that is found after the APS attack, although the security agency and government are doing a lot for the security of the people, but there is a sense of fear and terror in the people of Peshawar.
Ibrahim, let me throw this to you. Do you agree that basically when you talk about security, it's not just actual security measures, but also dealing with the emotional trauma that followed from events that already took place?
Absolutely, I do. I think it's a vital part of getting over something so horrible, particularly after the Peshawar attacks. You know, Pakistan has been witness to terrorism for a long time now, but I can't think of anything that was so heartbreaking, so demoralizing, and quite frankly traumatic as the Peshawar attack. And I think that not only for civilians, but for soldiers and for police officers and anyone who has been involved in this fight against extremism, rehabilitating them in emotional terms is another very important part of this whole effort.
Ibrahim and Noreen and Sajjad and Gibran, I really want to say thank you for spending time with us in the early hours of the morning for most of you. So I really appreciate you being part of this program. It's a tough subject to talk about, but I'm sure we will return to Pakistan as another topic in many AJ streams to come. But for now, I want to say thank you for being part of our program. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.